Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Hazel if it's your first time here, and today we're going to be going over brows. Everything that has to do with brows, how I fill them in, how I tweeze them at home, all sorts of things. So first things first, we're going to fill them in before tweezing. I like to first go in with some soap, but first adjust my spoolie. So first I'm going to brush all my hairs up. Next, I go in with my L'Occitane soap and that same spoolie once again. My spoolie is damped and I am going to just brush them up into place how I desire to have them once again. But now since I'm using the soap, it's going to really lay them in place and hold them. Now, I know a lot of people like to fill in their brows first and then go in with any sorts of setting that they usually use, but I personally like to set them first because that way they're gonna lay in place how I want them. And by laying them in place, I end up using less product of where I want to fill in, and I could give it the most natural appearance. So as far as what I use to fill in, it really depends on what kind of eyeshadow look I did and where I'm going. If it's just for my day-to-day, I might just use my eyebrow pencil. But if I want a little bit more, or I did a little bit more shadow or have on a fake brow, then I will go in with a pomade. So my favorite one is from Benefit. It's the Ka-Brow and I use number 4. Along with the Ka-Brow, I don't like to use the brush that it comes with. I think that it's a little thick for my preference. So I like to use Max 266. I find that this one gives me the most precision. So I really like to use this one. So I start off by going straight into my pomade, but I want to flatten my brush while I'm doing it. So if you notice, my brush itself is very, very fine. Sometimes I go in with the back of my hand as well, just to make sure that it's very, very fine. Because that way I'm going to be able to really create hair strokes. So what I do is follow my natural hair. So right at the front, my hair naturally grows up straight. So I start going straight. As I get to the side, it grows to the side. So I go to the side. So you could already see the difference between this brow and this brow. It looks much fuller. It gives it a very fluffy look to it with using that setting gel first. So I'm gonna leave this brow like this and we're gonna come back to it afterwards. I'm gonna work on this one now. Doing the exact same thing, I'm going straight into the pomade, making sure that my brush is very flat. I am going to start creating little hair strokes. So just creating little hair strokes. And if you guys notice, I'm holding my brush further back. This is gonna give you the least amount of pressure. I'll show you guys the difference. So if I'm holding my brush right at the top of it, I'm going to create a lot of pressure. But if I hold it from the back of it, I create less pressure. So if you guys can notice the difference, right? This is me holding it right at the top, and this is me holding it at the back. So when you want to create very, very soft strokes, you want to hold it at the back so that way you're not putting that much pressure into your brows. So the way that I like to remember it, it's that it's not a pen, it's a brush. So when you're painting, you hold it from the back. But when you're writing and it's a pen, you're holding it from the front. So it's a brush, not a pen. All right, now it's the next step. I like to just form it a little bit more. So same thing, I'm going to do the exact same thing, just dipping straight into that. Making sure that my brush is pretty flat. And now I'm gonna work at the bottom and at the top. So I'm going to follow how I naturally have that brow line. You see how I naturally have that brow line? So that's what I'm following. Now I'm gonna work at the top. Following that natural brow. Bringing it all the way in, but very, very lightly to create a very simple brow. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. Just following my natural brow line. See how that already looks so much fuller. Okay, now I'm gonna go into my arch. And bringing it in a little bit just to soften it. I like to turn my brush just kind of sideways, if you will, like flat ways, and just go over everything once again, but I'm not dipping back into any product. Now I just go in with my spoolie by itself with no product on it, just to make sure that I'm blending everything in, all of the product, just one last time. And that's pretty much it as far as filling in my brows. So there's certain days that I do have to use an extra step as far as using my pencil. The pencil I use for days that I really might have over tweezed or need a little bit extra coverage. Then I'll go in with a pencil or maybe a brow powder, but that doesn't really happen that frequently. That's if I'm being extra, really. Now that I have my eyebrows filled in, I'm gonna teach you guys how I actually tweeze my eyebrows. I don't tweeze my eyebrows as frequently as I should, but the way that I like to tweeze them is when they're filled in. I find that I'm keeping the shape that I originally desire, so I work around it, but I don't go into the actual brow itself. For instance, if you guys look closely, I have a little bit of hairs right out here that's outside of where I filled in, so that's what I'll tweeze. But I don't go into my filled in area. So again, this is where I typically get the most hair, is right up here and right in here a little bit. So that's what I usually work on the most. But just working outside of what I've already filled in. I don't really get that much hair up here, so I personally could leave that alone. Sometimes I do have a few ones that are a little bit darker than others, so those I'll tweeze out, but it's nothing that bothers me. I don't mind leaving them. As far as actually trimming them, I don't need to trim them right now personally, but I would just go around whatever is left over on the outside is what I would trim. But other than that, I leave them just as they are. If I do a heavier eyeshadow look, then sometimes I do carve them out, but I'm not crazy about carving them out just because I'm lazy sometimes. So just one final thought that I wanted to leave you guys before closing out this video is how to actually measure your eyebrows. You could just use your spoolie, your pencil, whatever works. The way that you want to guide yourself is by your nose, your eye, and the end of your eye. So right up here is where you would want your eyebrow to start. By tilting it in is where you want your arch to be. And by turning it long ways to the end of your eye is where you want your eyebrow to end. And That's not really rule of thumb. It's your eyebrow. You can have it however you want. It's personal preference, but you know, if you need to guide yourself a little bit better, that's a good guide to go by. All right, guys, and that's it. That completes my video for today. Please let me know if you guys have any suggestions of any future videos that you guys have in mind that I should do, or just any questions, comments. I'm more than happy to answer anything. Thanks. See you guys soon.